movie review. This is the movie Unforgiven, released in 1960, directed by John Huston. Screenwriters from a book by Alan LeMay and Ben Meadow. And it stars Burt Lancaster as Ben Zachary, Audrey Hepburn as Rachel Zachary, Audie Murphy plays Cash Zachary, Doug McClure is Andy Zachary, John Saxon plays Johnny Portugal, Charles Bickford is Zeb Rawlings, Lillian Gish is Matilda Zachary, and Albert Salmi plays Charles Rawlings. Finally, Joseph Wiseman is Abe Kelsey, and Kip Hamilton plays Georgia Rawlings. Okay, this is a western, a social conscious western, and it focuses on racism, and it's set in Texas about in the 1860s after the American Civil War. So the plot to Unforgiven, as I may have mentioned, it's a classic western, but it is very much regarded as an anti-racism movie. But, and we'll come to that later, we'll see from some of my references, we will look more into that. It opens up, and the first frame, which I found was significant, is a picture of the traditional view of the American Indian, a warrior on horseback with the weaponry, and that is very much atypical of how westerns portrayed the indigenous native Indian throughout. The second frame also I felt was very important, as we switch to a desert landscape which is suffering acutely from drought, and I think those two frames are very interlinked in terms of creating a picture of the life that the native Indian may well have been facing in the 1830s. We then switch to Rachel, played brilliantly by Audrey Hepburn, and what a beautiful woman she was. And she's at home with her stepmother, and they have horses there. And in fact, that's the business, amongst other things. Horses and cattle is what the Zachary family, Rachel is the sister, the Zachary family and the Rawlings family do as a joint partnership. And we see her free riding on horseback. It's a white horse, and without a saddle. And it's clear that that sort of reference is also to the native Indian, and she's well capable. She goes for a ride, and she comes across this rather sinister looking character called Kelsey, played by Joseph Wiseman, who utters some words provoking fear in the girl about the past coming back to create problems. We come across him again later in the movie, but he is a significant supporting act. We then turn to looking at establishing the family. Rachel has three brothers: Ben, played by Lancaster, Cash, who's played by Audie Murphy, and Andy, played by Doug McClure. Now, Ben is very much the patriarch. The father has died in a conflict, we find out later, from a native Indian. Cash is very much a bigot, and his racism is lying dormant, and it comes out very much so later in the movie. And Andy is a very young, happy-go-lucky guy who's trying to learn life from his brothers. so we get a picture of that family. We also get a glimpse into the Rawlings family, and Rawlings, Zeb Rawlings, is played by Charles Bickford, and his son Charlie, played by Albert Salmi, has more than an interest for Rachel. He's got quite a crush on her. And although he's a guy who appears to have very little self-confidence, he's quite determined in the fact that he wants to pursue a relationship with Rachel, leading to marriage. And anyway, that lays down the foundation. We come across an incident that I felt was significant, was when the members of both families have got a large quantity of Mustang horses together. A Mustang horse is an untrained horse, and they were going about the business of trying to instill some sort of control over, and the sole native Indian working for Zachary, Johnny Portugal, played by John Saxon, was asked, well, not so much asked, but told in uncertain terms, to try and curb the very aggressive stallion that the whites had failed to do. And of course, his gentle approach to befriending the horse enabled him to quickly get on the back of the horse without being thrown. And so I think Houston's message here was that this, we need to acknowledge that the native Indian has many skills that we don't have. And I certainly liked that addition to the film. Continuing with the plot, we become aware of the Kiowa Indian tribe that's been involved in the past with these families, and they approach Zachary's home in peace, and they basically make a point that this seedy character has made contact with them, and has suggested that Zachary has an Indian squaw in the house, and they would like the woman to be returned to them. There's little confrontation, but Lancaster is great in his sort of defiance of this request, and he's unwilling to accept any offer of horses by the Indian in exchange for the girl. And we come back to this again later on, and it moves on from there. There's an incident when the families are together, and at this particular time Rachel is there, and she's come on horseback, and while the men and her are involved in this situation with regard to Johnny Portugal managing to get the Mustang stallion under control, her horse is stolen, and it's believed that it's been stolen by this sinister man with a sabre. And so this prompts Ben to go and seek out this strange, disturbing figure. At the same time, what follows is that after there's an amusing incident involving Charlie and Rachel, when he actually he asks her family if he can be Rachel's husband. He's cock-a-hoop when there's a sort of inferred yes to that, and on the way home back to his own family, he's murdered by native Indians, and this therefore prompts the Zachary family to go out and try and seek not only the man who they believe has stolen the horse, but has also been responsible for the Indians murdering one of Rawlins' sons. And this is quite significant. We then, after his capture, we then witness a rather disturbing scene where a public lynching takes place, and there are various statements made, and this is to satisfy the revenge within Zeb Rawlings particularly. And without going into too much more of the plot, the fact that it emerges that Rachel is probably a native Indian, Rawlins demands that she's returned to her own kind, and Zachary Ben basically says that that's never going to happen on his watch. And that then leads to a situation where their business arrangement collapses, and they are then faced with the probability of the Indians charging on their property, vastly outnumbering, in an attempt to get their squaw back. And the movie follows through with that event as the film moves towards its conclusion. I was particularly keen on the scene when, after the first attempt by the Indians to get control of the Zachary residence, when they retreat, they start playing their flutes and other assorted instruments as a means to be protected by the gods, their gods. And in response, Ben, who had previously acquired a piano for his mother, gets the piano out front and requests his mother play some Mozart as a way of delivering a message to the native Indian that we have our music and we can communicate with our God as well for our protection. It was all rather tongue-in-cheek as I received it, but I found it quite amusing. The problem with the latter part of the film is that Huston returns very much to his bloodthirsty approach to westerns involving native Indians. The native Indians are viewed as bloodthirsty, ruthless, murderous animals, and the white American is viewed as the good guys defending their property and defending their rights. Previously, of course, we've had a clear picture emerge as to why this scenario finally takes place, but that tends to be lost a little in the action sequences. But nevertheless, now I want to just talk a little bit about not the plot, but a little bit about the issue that predominates this movie, and the issue of racism. And I found that I found some of the scenes rather lacking in authenticity. There's a contradiction with Ben Zachary in as much that he seems to be protecting his sister and very loyal to her being part of the family, but he also is quick to rise to the bait when the suggestion is that she is different because she is native Indian, and he doesn't take his loyalty far enough, which I found rather disappointing. Cash, who's presented very much as a bigger, I felt his racism was right on the mark. But again, latterly, he sort of adopts the loyalty within the family to try and soften his particular view with regard to the Indian, which I also found a little bit difficult to swallow. The situations when there's face-to-face contact between Ben Zachary and the Indians, I felt was handled well. It was very much Ben having the facility to communicate was used very cleverly, and there was a sort of respect that I felt was very vital. And I also found the scene of the lynching very melodramatic, a little bit over the top, and but nevertheless it's an area that should be made clear, because American justice just under 200 years ago, and even only 80 years ago, this was a form of justice that was thought to be quite appropriate for firstly native Indians, and then latterly African Americans. So I think it was appropriate that should be shown vividly. And so all in all, I was very impressed with the acting. Lancaster, of course, always delivers, I feel. His characters have a warmth to them, but at a time they also have a depth that means that you can get a picture of not agreeing with all aspects to him. He's normalised in that respect. Hepburn, in one of her very earlier roles, I was particularly impressed when she was listening to other members talk about what options were open to her, and her ability to be passive but maintain an aura, and at the same time use her non-verbal acting skills, was impressive, and suggested that this young woman was going to go on to bigger and better things in this industry. So, in conclusion, a pretty good movie. This is the first movie that I'm going to actually decide on a star rating. I'm going for the traditional 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 stars. 5 star is a movie that's absolutely brilliant. Should not be missed at all costs. It's a classic of its time. Then to 4, which is obviously pretty good, but has a few moments. And then we run into the 2.5 to 3, good in parts, worth the watch. And then we can slip right down to 1 star, which is basically a very simplistic portrayal on film, with lacking in depth, lacking in plot development, and lacking in character. So with regard to the Unforgiven, I'm going to give it a 3 stars, based on the fact that Houston, his direction is superb, his use of the landscapes, the outdoors, is 5 star, and some of the shots with the horses galloping are very realistic, and he also had a few aerial shots from the top of mountains that look mighty impressive. The music I wasn't too impressed with. It didn't seem to fit the mood really. It was far too raunchy and noisy, and not the best. So, but the acting again, particularly the 2 main characters, Lancaster and Hepburn, first rate. So I'm going to give it a 3 star. That's my review then on The Unforgiven.